Hey everyone, it's Mary Brownlee, licensed professional counselor and trauma therapist. Today we're going to talk about the difficult topic of going no contact, whether that's with an abusive family member like a parent or even siblings, for example, or anybody else that might be causing lots of distress in your life. So if you are a person that's grown up in an abusive family of origin, where there was a lot of dynamics related to like narcissistic parenting and golden child scapegoat type of dynamics, it is very likely that you probably at some point thought about the possibility of whether you should remain in contact or not. So this video will really be helpful for those of you who have thought about going no contact but have been kind of on the fence. We're going to go over kind of the pros and the cons of going no contact. We're going to ask ourselves a couple of really hard questions that will really help you determine whether it's a good idea to go no contact or not. And we're going to talk about some pros and cons if you do decide to go no contact. Like what can you expect from your family of origin should that be the individuals that you're going no contact from or any other abuser. So we'll be covering a lot of information today, and I'll break it up in several sections. We'll go over reasons for staying in contact. We'll talk about those tough questions I mentioned. We'll talk about reasons for going no contact. And then we'll also ask the question, should you tell the abuser whether you're going no contact or not? And then lastly, we'll cover why and what might possibly happen after you go no contact as well. The possibilities of reactions from the abusive family. So I hope you find this video helpful. Feel free to drop comments or questions below if I left anything out, and feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. Your support is so helpful. And without further ado, let's get started. So the reasons for going no contact usually come down to a couple of different things, but they all have a lot of commonalities. And first, I would like to start out with some of the reasons you might want to not go no contact. I myself went no contact with my abusive family of origin, so a lot of this stuff I know kind of on a personal level. And I did. There was a time period when I was like hemming and hawing, and it's agony because for an abuse survivor to go no contact really means we are choosing to self-orphan ourselves. And we know if we make that important decision of deciding to cut ties with a family member, likely that means that we're going to lose additional family members as well. So never in the history of me working with my own population, which is highly traumatized clients. I've been working with this population for over 9 years. And then also myself as a trauma survivor. Nobody has ever gone no contact on a whim. Like it's never done like, oh gosh, I got into an argument and I can't stand my parent, and so I'm never speaking to them again. Like it's never done on a whim. Like this is something that people have really been struggling with for years before something, which I call the straw that breaks the camel's back, something happens that just really solidifies the person's decision to go no contact. But up until that point, there really is a lot of agony and attempts from the victim to try to appease the abuser and make them happy and make the relationship better and work on themselves and get themselves into therapy and blah, blah, blah. You get the picture. The point is that the victim is the one doing all the work and the abuser is not doing any work. So before I get ahead of myself, let's discuss the reasons you might actually choose to stay in contact. So some of these are actually back when I was still making this decision myself, were some of the reasons I wanted to stay in contact as well. So if you can relate to these, great. If you can think of any that maybe I didn't touch upon, feel free to drop those below as well. All right. So the first one is maintaining relationships with extended family who are not involved directly in the abuse. So that was a decision I myself had to really think about, because I knew if I went no contact with the person in my family that was causing me the most distress, that it was going to percolate through the entire family, and really I was going to get backlash, right? And there was a high likelihood that I probably was going to lose family members I didn't want to lose. So that kept me really stuck for a period of time where I was not willing to go no contact at that point because I was afraid to lose these family members. Another one is that basically we feel that, well, some contact with the family is better than no contact. Like we're settling. Basically, we're so afraid of going no contact and losing everyone that we just settle, and we're like, well, I'll just continue being mistreated. I'm used to it and I can handle it, and some contact is better than no contact. So it's like, yeah, there's this part of us that is, I think, afraid of loss and abandonment and loneliness. And if you think about human beings, like how we've been biologically hardwired is for social relationships. To lose our tie to the group, way back when, caveman days, so to speak, would mean certain death if you lost contact with your tribe. So there is, I think, an instinctive fear in human beings to not lose their tribe, even if that tribe is harming them. It goes against our survival instincts. So yeah, that definitely is felt by a lot of us survivors when we're trying to make this decision. There's a potential for the inheritance to be lost. So that's something that I myself was worried about because, in all fairness, I was not financially really well off or really stable at this point when I was making this decision. And there was a chance that some inheritance could have helped me substantially in my life. So it was something I had to consider. I also have kids, and they would be also losing any inheritance as well. And so that was something that it was like, do I stay for the hopes of getting an inheritance? Or do I leave and just say my mental health is worth more than any price, out there, and I'm just going to cut my losses and know that I probably will be disinherited? Spoiler alert, I was disinherited. So we'll get to that in a minute. My children would not lose their uncles and aunts and other family members that they loved. So that was another reason that I delayed for quite a period of time, because my kids loved the extended family members. And I only had a small family. I didn't have a really big family. So these were really only family members they knew and had developed relationships with. And so the mama part of me was also aware of my children's needs and feelings and struggling with recognizing that I was going to cause them loss as well. And so that was another thing that kept me on that edge for a while. Change is scary. So that's another reason. Change is scary, and not changing anything at all feels a lot safer than sometimes making that huge leap where we know that there's going to be drastic consequences and ramifications. So sometimes, yeah, staying where it feels sadly more comfortable, and it keeps us stuck for way too long because we're afraid of what the new and unfamiliar might look like. So that's another common reason that survivors might stay in contact. And then the last one I want to talk about is avoiding rocking the boat and increasing the abuse that you will definitely experience if you start to set boundaries and change the dynamics by going no contact. You have to remember that abusive families of origin, they operate with kind of a very rigid set of rules and roles and expectations. They're not necessarily said out loud, but everyone has a defined role. And so when you have a scapegoat or a person who's singled out, black sheep of the family that's been kind of singled out as the target of the problems in the family, when that person decides to be the truth teller and kind of begin to stand up against the abuse, that's going to change the entire status quo of the family. The family has gotten away with being abusive for decades and generations because no one has changed the dynamics. So when the scapegoat or black sheep attempts to essentially save themselves by going no contact, they are really flying in the face of the big lie that the family is wonderful and perfect and everything's fine. So yeah, I call it the big lie. It's the facade the family puts on to outsiders that everything is beautiful and copacetic and wonderful. So yeah, when you have an adult child go, see ya, I'm out of here, you bet that the family is worried about what that's going to look like to other people. So we know as black sheep and scapegoats that if we disappear from the family and go no contact, that there's a high likelihood that negative consequences will happen, either in the form of like smear campaigns, which I'll get to more in a minute, or like ramping up of abuse and control tactics and other type of really negative outcomes. And again, we'll get to more of those in the last section about what can happen after you go no contact, because definitely you can be pretty sure that nothing fun is going to happen immediately, at least in the immediate aftermath of you challenging the family's status quo of everything's fine and the big lie. So, some of the questions I want you to think about as you're making this decision or attempting to making this decision of really, where do I want to go? Do I want to stay in contact and potentially have the same sort of abusive behaviors in my life? Or do I want to actually free myself and begin to live a life that's fully mine, full of freedom and safety and purpose and meaning, right? So there are some important questions that might help you make this decision, because this decision cannot be made lightly. There are lifelong consequences to this decision. So I would never encourage anybody to just go no contact on a whim. No, it's something you really want to be sure that is the right fit for you, because it's not for every single person. Just to be clear, some people can maintain what we call low contact, where maybe they see their family for like holidays for a few hours and then they skedaddle, but they really don't have like a lot of contact throughout the year with the abusive family member. It's kind of like we call it like gray rock, where it's just very minimal communication, no emotional overtones, no hot button topics, just, oh, hello, how are you? Oh, yeah, little Jimmy's fine. Oh, that's good. How's he doing in school? Oh, he's good. He's doing great. Oh, well, it's been good talking to you. Okay. Talk to you later. All right. Bye. And then, a few months go by. It's like just barest contact in terms of spending time with that family member or dialoguing with them. That I would call that like no contact, or I'm sorry, low contact, kind of gray rocky. Now, if your abusive family member is the type that you can actually maintain some type of contact without them further abusing you and kind of respecting boundaries and whatever line you've drawn, then that's fine. You can remain low contact successfully so. But as a lot of us who have abusive family dynamics, it's impossible to go low contact because, or I should say, it's impossible to go low contact without some sort of backlash is what happens. So usually what happens is the person who is being abused in the family begins to set some sort of boundaries. Hey, please don't speak to me like that. I find it rude. Or maybe they're starting to pull back and spend less time at family gatherings, etc. And inevitably what happens is it's almost like the abusive family member sniffs out that something is different. Like, oh, little Junior is pulling back from me. I sense some strength. There's a change in the force. I can't control them as easily, right? So usually the abusive person picks up on the fact that the victim is like, I'm changing the rules of engagement and I'm not okay with this. And so what typically happens is the abuse ramps up. So the more the person sets boundaries, tries to be assertive, distances themselves, in people who go no contact, usually what happens after that is the abusive person gets more and more abusive in response to kind of trying to get the person back in line and to toe the line and be controlled. And so if an abusive parent sniffs out that the adult child is trying to free themselves and they respond with, instead with more abuse and guilt tripping and manipulation and that type of behavior, then likely at some point the adult's going to be like, I'm done with this. See ya. So that's what happened in my case. It's what I see happen in a lot of my clients too. But getting back to the important questions that can kind of help you decide whether you want to go forward with no contact are the following. All right. What am I getting out of this relationship? What are you getting out of the relationship? It's a serious question to ask yourself. Is there reciprocity? Like, in other words, is there a give and take where the other person's putting in as much effort or similar effort as you are? Or no? Are they just completely emotionally absent from your life and it's like you don't exist, for example, or you're doing all the emotional labor and all the work to maintain it and they do nothing in return? Or are they verbally abusing you and like emotionally harming you on a regular basis? Just what exactly are you getting out of the relationship? In my case, it was precisely nothing. Precisely nothing but pain and suffering. If I was not related to this person, Would I even want them in my life? So this is a question my personal therapist asked me many years ago when I was working on my own trauma. And that really put it in perspective for me. This question was very helpful because she was absolutely right. If we were not related to these people and didn't grow up with them, would we actually want them in our lives, right? Like as friends or even colleagues or something like that? No. No, the answer is no, we would not. We probably have nothing in common with them. At the first sign of nasty behavior, we'd probably be like, oh, I don't want to hang out with this person. What the hell? But because they're family, there's this unspoken barrier to us freeing ourselves. Like, oh, but they're family, you have to love them. Family's forever, Ooh. So there's all sorts of really unhelpful messages that abuse survivors get that also keep us trapped. And the bottom line is, if you didn't have any biological relationship with this person and just met them at work or at church or whatever, would you have a relationship with them? If the answer is no, then act accordingly. Next question, how have I been harmed by this person's presence in my life? Be honest with yourself, write it down. How have you been harmed? What has been the negative outcomes? If you want, write a list of pros and cons. Here's all the cons. Here's a list of pros, and my guess is if you are thinking about going no contact, the cons list is a lot longer than the pros. Next question, is there a realistic chance that the relationship could get better? Will the abuser attend therapy? In my case, I asked a couple of my family members if they would attend therapy. The answer was no, they have no interest in going to therapy. So if the other person is not going to work on themselves or have a desire to honestly work on the relationship, there's nothing you can do to change it. We are only responsible for one half of the relationship. The other person is responsible for the other half. And if they don't want to work on their half at all, there's nothing you can do to change them or the dynamics going on. You can only then work on yourself. And you can do that successfully with no contact or with a good therapist, for example, and maintaining good boundaries and gray rock and whatnot. These are really some very important questions I asked myself that helped me make the decision, and I hope they help you make a better decision as well. Next, we'll go over the reasons you would want to for going no contact. So we'll talk about that right now. All right, so reasons for going no contact. I have quite a number on this list. Again, I encourage you to write out your own list, reasons for staying, reason for going. In my case, the reasons for going were a lot longer than reasons for staying, and yours probably will be too if you're already thinking about going no contact. All right, number one, not having to mask anymore. And what I mean by that is you can finally be your true, authentic self. If you're like me, anytime you are around your family members, my guess is you probably have to put on like this version of yourself that is not actually who you are. So I call that masking. People who are autistic or on the spectrum also are familiar with this term of masking. And that's like really where you have to hide a big portion of who you are to try to fit in with the family. So in this case, not because you're autistic, but because the family is fundamentally unsafe, and to be your authentic self is unsafe around them. So you have to hide a lot of your more vulnerable, true self qualities in order to be accepted by the family. So right before I went no contact, I experienced a ramping up of distress. Just the thought of having to be around these particular family members was so excruciating that I was experiencing like a flood of fight flight hormones, like those panic and anxiety symptoms, pit in your stomach, nausea, diarrhea, like physical, even distress in the body, because my body was telling me the truth that fundamentally these people were not safe for me to be around. Pay attention to your body, by the way. That's something I tell all my clients who are trauma survivors. The body doesn't lie. The body doesn't lie. It tells you the truth. And if your body is responding with a high degree of stress, anytime you even think about being around them, much less be around them, that's telling you the truth, that these people are fundamentally harmful to you. All right. You start to dread having any contact with them whatsoever. So yeah, if you find yourself like in the days before, say, a family gathering, where you're already prepping in your mind, like, oh God, I have to think about like scenarios that that the abusive person might say or do, and ways of responding to keep my sanity. And okay, there's going to be a safe word. If I say the safe word, can we leave? And like, oh my gosh, it's like going to war and we have to have a battle strategy just to get through Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, that's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. All right. Improving your sense of dignity and self-respect. So this is something I didn't experience until after I went no contact, but the amount of self-love and self-respect and a restoring of my actual human dignity, that happened after I went no contact. I couldn't respect myself when really there was so much self-abandonment every time I went around them. I would actually have to abandon myself to exist around these people. And it was just so increasingly distressing to have to do that played a big part in my decision. And then restoring my actual sense of self and dignity and love for myself, which happened afterwards. Like, you couldn't pay me enough money now to go back to those family dynamics. Like, never in a million years would I don't care how much money you pay me, I would never go back to the role that I played in that family, which was definitely the scapegoat role. She's the problem, she's the crazy one, blah, blah, blah. You put whatever label on it, but they only see you in that very defined, small, rigid role, and that's it. They don't actually appreciate or see you for who you authentically really are. So yeah, I just couldn't do it anymore. Protecting yourself from further abuse. So that's a big one too. A big reason why many people go no contact at its very basic is to protect ourselves from further abuse. The only way we can prevent further abuse is to stay the heck away from them, and permanently so. So that's a big one. The body can heal and not have fight or flight symptoms anymore. Oh my gosh. So something that all people in any type of trauma field know, mental health and trauma, is that our bodies also experience trauma. So trauma is not just stored in our minds and in our emotional world, it's stored in our physical bodies and manifests in a lot of different ways, from like chronic pain, excuse me, like fibromyalgia, IBS, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, even like high blood pressure, higher risk for like heart disease and strokes even. So the body keeps the score. I highly recommend Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score. Amazing, probably just one of the best books that lays the foundation for trauma, probably one of the biggest trauma experts in our field. So Dr. van der Kolk definitely will lay out too how closely the body is impacted by trauma, as well as of course, our mind and our emotions. So yeah, saving our bodies and our health as well is a big reason for a lot of us to go no contact. This one was a really big one for me because I had kids. I wanted to protect my kids from abuse, not only from my family members potentially abusing them, but also they were watching me, and they were watching me at my worst when I had full-blown complex PTSD. I was a hot mess, to say the least, and I could no longer be myself, and I was crying, just so sad and depressed and even suicidal at one point. And they were watching their mother die slowly in front of their eyes. My spirit was dying. So a big part of it was I had to save myself first to save my kids. Like, it was not an option to harm myself because I had kids. They were my number one priority. And so I got out for them. So they were probably my number one reason. They were my anchor that said, you need to be a mother first and healthy and whole, so that you can love those babies and protect them and raise them up in this world so that they're not traumatized human beings. So my kids are my number one reason why I went no contact, because my family was killing me, literally. Protecting my own children from generational trauma. So yeah, I basically mentioned that. By cutting ourselves free, the way I look at it is all of us, generational trauma, think of it as like a chain, right? And so whether it's your great-grandparents to your grandparents to your parents to you, but this trauma has come down from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. And it will continue to do so in our kids and beyond, unless somebody breaks that transmission of generational trauma. And for those of you who go no contact, my God, it's the ultimate act of bravery. You are breaking literally hundreds of years before you of generational trauma. When you decide to go no contact and heal, It is just something that is the biggest gift, not only for yourself, but any future generation. Like my children will never have to know what it is to be abused and to feel unloved and to hate themselves. They'll never know. They'll never know because I saved them from that. And so, if for no other reason than that, we stop the generational transmission of trauma. And that is huge, huge. All right. We can fully start to heal and live a life that is full of purpose and meaning that makes sense for us. So this is a big one. When you are in that family of origin, you're not going to be able to heal. So there is a saying that says, you cannot heal in the environment that broke you. This is very true. A lot of us who've gone no contact, we know this firsthand. People who are in contact don't know what this feels like yet. You really can't. Your nervous system, first of all, cannot feel safe until you're away from the abuse. It's only when you get enough space and time away from the abuse that you begin to see things accurately as well. The blinders come off, the lenses clear up, and you now finally can see the dynamics in the family for what they really are, which is incredibly harmful and abusive. So you really cannot start healing from trauma at all until you get away from the environment that broke you. Then your nervous system can begin to feel safe again, and then trauma healing can commence. So that's another big reason. Ooh, gaining a sense of control over your own life and well-being. Yeah, you're not going to have control over your life and well-being as long as you're around the family. None whatsoever. That's a huge reason. We obtain freedom over our own life and our destiny and which way we want to move in life when we go no contact. It allows the grieving process to complete, which leads to acceptance of what we cannot change. So I talk about this in a lot of my other videos. Feel free to check them out. There's quite a few good ones about the importance of completing the grief process when you are a trauma survivor, especially with going no contact from your family of origin. There will be grief. So even though these people were harmful to us, the truth is that we actually loved them. We're capable of love. We're capable of true human connection. They're not. So, losing our families is very, very painful. So it's normal to have, sorry, I apologize. I don't know if you can hear my dogs. It's normal to have grief and stages of grief from like denial and anger and bargaining. But the whole point is at the end of the grief cycle is acceptance. And acceptance is really that stage where you're able to go, I understand what happened. I understand I wasn't at fault. I love myself now, and I'm willing to move forward in life. And in fact, I see life still has much brightness, and I look forward to really forging my own path with purpose and meaning. And I accept the past for what it was. I couldn't change it. I did the best I could, and you're able to move forward. So you can't get to that stage without healthy grief, and that's normal, huge. All right. It closes chapters of our lives that changed who we were and opens new chapters to become our authentic self. So you're not going to be able to be your authentic self as long as you are in contact with abusers. It's impossible to foster who you really are when you're around people that, again, put you in a tiny, small box and said, I'm only going to love you unless you're in that tiny, small box. You got to fit in there, or I want nothing to do with you. Yeah, you can't develop authentic self when you're in that type of environment. So going no contact allows us to develop our authentic self. Safety. Oh my goodness. Safety really should almost be number one, because again, as a trauma therapist, I know you cannot heal unless you have safety established first. So going no contact allows for the establishment of safety, which is huge for the healing process. Learning to love ourselves. Again, can't love yourself when you're constantly getting these horrible messages around you that you're unlovable and unworthy and stupid and shameful and blah, 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 blah. Nope. The love happens when you break free and you begin to see yourself accurately through healthy eyes, finally. It's neutral third parties that allowed me to see myself accurately. People like my therapist, my bosses, my coworkers, my husband, my friends. Those people saw me through healthy, neutral third party eyeballs, so to speak, and they reflected back to me my worth and value as a human being. Those people I'm so grateful for to this day because they were a big process of my healing and seeing myself accurately and being able to love myself. So yeah, these are just some of the reasons for going no contact. I hope you found them helpful. I hope you could relate to them. And next, we'll talk about, should you tell them whether you're going no contact or not? Yeah. Should you tell them that you're going to go no contact. So this is something I remember researching way back when I was trying to make this decision. Part of you like kind of wants to like write a huge letter and get it all out and, get out some of the rage and anger, so to speak. And I never want to see you again. You know what I mean? But then there's another part of you that's like, will this really accomplish anything other than probably make them really mad at me and I'll probably be abused even more? So in my case, I chose not to say anything. I just kind of quietly went away and didn't say anything. And that was that. So I would say the majority of people that I have observed throughout the years when this exact question comes up, I would say the majority probably choose to just kind of quietly and silently just go away and not really say anything. And the reason for that is because there's a high likelihood that whatever you say anyways, first of all, they're abusive, right? And they've always been abusive and they're not willing to work on themselves and there's no accountability. What is the likelihood of them responding favorably to you trying to explain yourself that that's it, I can't be in contact with you anymore? Probably not very good odds, right? In fact, what's probably going to happen is that they may get some parting shots or behaviors that harm you to a higher degree. So if there's a strong chance that you trying to explain yourself that you're going to go no contact is going to cause more abuse or harm, please don't do it. Please don't do it. It's not worth it. It's fine to just not say anything at all. You've made the internal decision and then you just move on with your life and like block them on email and cell phone and social media or anything else you need to do. Those who have chosen to announce it, I think they just said it briefly, like I'm choosing to go no contact. I don't want any sort of communication whatsoever in the form of, say, mailing or email or phone or whatever. I will not answer. Do not attempt to contact me. So some people have done that. I just want you to choose whatever method feels safest and best for you. In my case, I just wanted to be free of them in the safest way possible. And I knew they wouldn't give two craps about my boundaries or what I explained anyways. So I just left and got on with my life. So yeah, but if you feel like, you know what, I actually do want to tell them, don't contact me again. This is the last message. Goodbye. And you feel like that's going to make you feel better and you need to say it, then I give you permission to do it. As long as you're safe and you're comfortable with any potential outcomes. But again, safety first. Safety first. Do whatever is going to be safest for you. So use your best judgment there. I just thought I would give you some pros and cons of both. All right, now we're on to the part where we talk about, say you've successfully gone no contact. It's been a period of time. What happens after you go no contact? Yes. So there's a variety of responses. No family is exactly the same, but I'll go over a couple of different scenarios of what is likely to happen, or at least certainly has happened in a large number of people who have successfully gone no contact. So you got to be aware. There's definitely going to be some consequences for going no contact, but if you've decided to make this decision, you probably are just fine with whatever the consequences are at this point, because ultimately you've chosen yourself and your safety and that of any children you might have, and you've just decided to be your authentic self and move on with your life. So good for you. But nonetheless, here are some potential outcomes of going no contact. The first is that there will likely be a high degree of smear campaigning after you leave. And what that means is that the remaining family members, for example, will go and make sure to tell everyone else that knows you that you're a terrible person, and they will kind of like, oh, woe is me, and play the victim, right? So when somebody goes no contact with the family, again, as I mentioned earlier, you're breaking status quo and you're upsetting the dynamics in the family, and that's going to look bad to outsiders. Narcissistic families always care about how they appear to other people. And they know that they have to they have to kind of alter the story to fit their own narrative about why you left, right? And they can't say, oh, well, so-and-so left because we're abusive assholes. No, right? They're not. What they're going to say is so-and-so left because, they're just so terrible and we couldn't take it anymore. And they did this, this, and this. And we just put our foot down finally. And we have decided not to be around so-and-so. They're going to change the story. They're going to lie. They're going to alter the story. They're going to omit very important information about what actually happened so that this neutral third party gets this incredibly wrong version of what actually happened. So be prepared for that. You very well may be contacted by what we call flying monkeys. It comes from the Wizard of Oz, how the evil witch kind of sicked her evil monkeys on Dorothy. So yeah, flying monkeys can be those kind of neutral third parties or extended family members, etc., that contact you on behalf of the narcissistic family. And, oh, I heard that from Aunt Susie that blah, blah, blah happened. What's going on? I'm so worried, So be on the lookout for that type of behavior. You don't have to answer any information you don't feel comfortable sharing or answering. It's very common for the narcissistic family to completely lie about you. Again, they have to keep up appearances. And if you have any third parties asking about what happened, it's very much okay to set boundaries such as, hey, Aunt Bethany, I appreciate your concern, but this is really between me and my mother, and I really don't feel comfortable discussing it with you. So yeah, you do what you need to do to maintain your own safety. It's no response is a response as well. You could just not respond to people who do that type of behavior. Ultimately, it's inappropriate for third parties not involved in a conflict to insert themselves in the middle anyways. It's inappropriate. Healthy people are able to dialogue one-on-one and fix problems. Unhealthy people cannot do that. So yeah, don't engage with people who are triangulating or trying to get a neutral third party to come in between and play peacemaker or find out dirty information and smear and all of that. I didn't participate. I just remained mum and ignored any and all nonsense like that happened after I left. You can definitely expect the abuse to ramp up. So think of it like in psychology, there's a term called the extinction curve. So this is really from behaviorism, where if you've heard of Pavlov's dogs, for example, they were trained successfully with the tone from a bell, and they would start to salivate because they associated it with food. So the idea is that as you start a new behavior, you're going to see negative behavior ramp up, right? And so as you go no contact, you can expect kind of negative behavior from the family to ramp up as they try to kind of get a response out of you and get you back into line and get you back under control. But as long as you are no contact and remain no contact and don't respond at all, you can expect that extinction curve to go back down and hopefully go to zero. And zero meaning they're not bothering you anymore. It's common for what we call a secondary, almost like an extinction burst, to happen after that, where the behavior might ramp up, but to a lesser degree, and then finally go to zero. So my point is, when you go no contact, you've changed the rules of engagement. Unhealthy families don't like that. They're going to try to get back at you in some way, shape, or form to continue the drama or get you back into line and control you. And you remain steadfast. You are no contact. So that means no response, throwing away mail, blocking all, methods of communication. If any get through, don't answer. You don't answer. Mum is the word. You've gone no contact. So if the behaviors ramp up for a period of time, ignore them. And the idea is that eventually it will go back down to zero and you will have your blissful peace and quiet, and you can just continue on with your life without abuse. That's the hope here. All right. Disinheritance is a big topic. I was disinherited. So I didn't find this out till after my father passed away. But when my mother was alive, my two siblings and myself were meant to inherit equally. We were going to inherit the estate equally. It was in trust. And I found out after my mother died before my father. She was the healthier parent. And my father died after her. And in between the year of her dying and him dying, my father changed everything in the will. And my youngest brother, the golden child, and the only biological child of my father as well, I'm adopted, as is my other sibling. So he got everything. Got the house, got everything. My father changed it and willed everything to my youngest brother. So this is very, very common in abusive and narcissistic families, where scapegoats and black sheeps will be disinherited, and that usually the golden child or one person gets it all, for example. Do not be surprised. Do not be surprised if it happens. Essentially, when you go no contact, you kind of have to expect, yeah, I'm probably out of the will at this point. But what you're choosing is yourself. And that is priceless. There's no amount of money in the world worth it to sell your soul to the devil, which is what we do when we stay around the abusive family. We literally have to sell our soul to the devil just to be around these people an attempt to survive. To me, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. I'd rather be poor and living in a cardboard box on the street than have zero dignity, zero self-respect, immense self-hatred, constant panic and fight or flight symptoms, and absolutely hate myself. Yeah, no amount of money was worth that. It wasn't worth it. So I cut myself loose. The disinheritance still stung because, again, it's the final word from the parent that you so desperately wish would love you, that they actually don't love you, and what you suspected your whole life was actually true. Interesting note, I always felt that my father didn't love me from a young age, and lo and behold, his behavior showed true all the way to the end. So it is going to hurt. But again, the trade-offs are that when you do heal, you'll feel so much self-love and compassion for other people's suffering. You'll have a new sense of purpose and meaning, and you'll realize that life still has plenty of beauty and it's worth living. And finally, you get to live it on your terms and do what's important and meaningful to you. That's priceless. You can't do that when you're around them. All right, loss of extended family members and siblings siding with the abusive parent. Very common. This happened in my family as well. This happens in many people's dysfunctional families. It's very likely that many of your family members, like siblings and whatnot, will side with the abusive parent. Now, there might be various reasons why they do that. Either they're afraid of the abuse being turned on them next, or they want an inheritance and know that, hey, if I cut loose as well, I'm losing any chance of inheriting anything. There's various reasons. But either way, very common for your extended family or siblings to maintain contact with the abusive parent, to protect the abusive parent, and to heap abuse onto you for having the audacity to have a spine and leave the family. So, yep, I lost my entire extended family, including even an aunt. Once she got in contact with the golden child, the smear campaign was successful, and I lost my aunt as well. So very, very common. I hear it repeatedly in a lot of my clients with similar dynamics. A lot of the literature out there, you'll hear similar stories as well. So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. But again, long term, our eye should always be on the prize here. And the long-term prize is dignity, self-respect, love, safety, purpose and meaning. We're not selling our soul out anymore. We get to truly be free. That's priceless. There will be hoovering attempts. So hoover means kind of like the Hoover vacuum, sucking you back in. So yeah, you can expect some hoovering attempts where other family members, maybe not the narcissist directly, but other family members might try to kind of suck you back into the drama in one way, shape, or form. In my case, my father didn't try to contact me at all. Once he said, nope, I'm done, and you're crazy and you need to go see a therapist. That was his last words to me, even though I had asked him to please meet with me one-on-one and that I loved him and wanted to work on our relationship. He said, nope, I don't want any part of that, and you're crazy and you need to see a therapist. So that was my father's last words to me, and he never contacted me again. So some narcissistic parents discard us first, especially when they can kind of see that we're onto them. Some parents will preemptively discard their own child as a protective mechanism to kind of get ahead of it, and they have the power now. And I think maybe secretly they hope we'll come, crawling back on our hands and knees and begging them for love because they love power trips. In my case, I didn't. I just said, okay, I'm moving on with my life. And I did. And so, yeah. But other parents are very, very much cannot let the child go. And they will do all sorts of manipulative, underhanded communication attempts, etc., to try to hoover the adult child back in. So you can be prepared for that, either one of those scenarios, depending on your narcissistic parent or family member. Each person is unique, so the way they respond can be unique as well. But those are a couple different scenarios that we see commonly. So yeah, that kind of wraps it up. I really hope that you found this video helpful. If you have any further questions, feel free to drop them below in the comment section. I'm happy to try to answer any of them. If you got any ideas for other videos that you would like some more information on, feel free to drop that below as well. And again, I appreciate all of you. Please like the video if you found it helpful. I would love it if you subscribed. That really helps grow my channel. But I appreciate all of you, and I really look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.